What is going on, everybody? Welcome into another tier maker video here on the channel. Today we're going to be doing all of the edge rushers in the NFL. Well, maybe not quite all of the edge rushers, but we're looking at pretty much 3 from every team. Some teams only had 2 worth talking about, but pretty much every notable edge rusher in the league. And I do apologize if I omitted somebody from this video. It's probably going to be a long one. There's probably going to be 1 or 2 players. Maybe someone was stuck on an injured reserve or something that I missed. So I do apologize in advance, but we'll see. I think I was pretty thorough on this thing. Before we do get started, if you could please hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. I'm going to try to make these tier maker videos more of a common thing. Also, let me know about the format of how I do this. I'm going to fill this out as we go. In the past, I've pre-made them and then gone through my list. I wanted to try kind of filling them out as we go to see how you guys like it this way, to see my thought process a little bit more. So let's have some fun and let's get into it. Now, before we get started, I do really feel the need to explain the tiers here to add some context here. At the top, you're obviously going to have your elite tier, very self-explanatory. But then you're going to have your true number ones. And these are guys that, while they might not be your elite guys, which, spoiler alert, is going to include your Myles Garretts and Micah Parsons, while they're not maybe quite at that level of efficiency, the true number ones are guys that, from a statistical standpoint, are going to get you on average 75 pressures, 15 sacks. Those are kind of the metrics we're going to be looking at in this video, which, by the way, I hope PFF doesn't mind. I'm going to be showing some of the stats that I like to look at to kind of reinforce what I'm seeing on the film with these guys. And I will just tell you guys, if you want to get these numbers, go check out Pro Football Focus Premium Stats. I think especially their pass rushing metrics are some of the best just pieces of information you can get as a football fan. So a free promo for PFF. I hope they don't mind me showing the numbers here as of week 12 in the 2023 season. But yeah, your true number ones are going to be guys that, while maybe you can't get a Micah Parsons or a Myles Garrett, you're more than happy if the guys in this tier are the best edge rusher on your team, because they're still some of the best in the league. But then you have guys that could be a number 1, but ideally would be a number 2. And you guys are going to hear me say the words number 1 and number 2 a lot in this video, so get used to it. But that's why I'm going through the tiers, so you can really get a grasp on what I mean when I say that. So, you know, this tier right here are going to be guys that, if he was your 1, you can live with it, but ideally you could make him a complement to a more premium pass rusher. These guys are probably going to be more 55, 60 pressure players on average and about 12 sack players. Then you've got your true number 2s, which in my mind, I'm thinking 55 pressures, 10 sacks. Give me a real number 1 opposite of him, and you've got a real dominant pass rush set up there. Then you've got guys that are good number 2s now, but are trending in the right direction to someday become premium number 1 pass rushers. So those are going to be some of the more high-end prospects and more younger pass rushers in the league right now. Then this is an interesting group right here, designated pass rusher. These are players that aren't really full-time starters necessarily from a total snap count perspective. And it's going to include maybe some guys that are parts of deep rotations, or guys that haven't proven to be full-time starters, some veterans that can't handle a full snap count, and some guys that really struggle against the run but are really efficient pass rushers when they're in there. You'll hear people say DPRs out there. That's what we're talking about in this tier. Then you've got your number 3s. These are guys that, honestly, ideally, they should not be one of your 2 best edge rushers on your team. But what's interesting about this is there are going to be a lot of players on this list that are, in my opinion, guys that should be number 3 pieces for your edge group that are currently being asked to start and be number 2s. So there's going to be some guys that a lot of fans come out and say, what are you talking about? That guy's a number 2 for us. But I'm here saying, in my opinion, your team should go and look for someone to overtake that guy. Then you get into your prospects. These are going to be really young players, unproven players, and I'm sorting this in terms of like traits, and a lot of this has to do with draft position because that's the reality of it. But These are, in my opinion, guys that really haven't proven much yet, but do have the upside to get into those top tiers someday. And then these are going to be guys that I still like, but maybe lack some of the completeness as a player to maybe be a number 1, but could someday ascend to be a number 2. So again, this is going to be a long one. Let's go ahead and get into it. We're just going to go in order of how they feed these to me. I did go ahead and make all these graphics, so if you guys want to use this tier maker, it is up on the tier maker site. But let's have some fun here, and I'm going to try to go as reasonably fast as possible. So AJ Epinesa of the Buffalo Bills, to me, having a good year, fluctuates between being a number 2 and a number 3. He is actually a guy that I think we should refer to his stats on this year a little bit. So he is going to be right now actually 18th in that sacks, but he's 44th in pressures. He's got 27 pressures on the season, so he's on pace for about 40 pressures, and his pass rush win rate is way down there at 11.5%. It's actually blocked on the screen right now by my face, but for me, he's putting up some good numbers, but in terms of his ability to truly win one-on-one, I think you could probably do a little bit better than him. He's a tough one to start with there, but I'm going to put him in here for now. Then we got Aiden Hutchinson. He's going to come up here to a true number 1. Aiden Hutchinson is awesome. He has been even better than I expected him, especially in year 2 to be. My pro comp for him coming out was Max Crosby. And, I mean, Crosby has ascended himself, but, I mean, both those guys are great examples of guys just out there on a mission to constantly prove people wrong. The Jags screwed up, man, not taking Aiden Hutchinson. And by the way, I'm not going to sort these guys within tiers. Screw it. Let's do it. Let's sort them within tiers with the left side being the highest. All right. Alex Highsmith. He, to me, is the definition of could be a number 1, but ideally is a number 2. Hasn't really had the opportunity to show that he could be. Whoops, what do we do there? There we go. We fixed it. Yeah, he hasn't necessarily had the opportunity to prove that he could be a number 1, but he's super underrated. He's been incredible for the Steelers this year. But obviously, TJ Watt demands a lot of attention there. Watt's the one that feels like he gets a lot of the chips and the tight end help and the running back help. Highsmith, a lot more of those one-on-one opportunities that I think help his production a little bit. But viewers of the channel know I'm a big Alex Highsmith fan. Okay, Arden Key, he's a good designated pass rusher for the Titans and was for the Jags. They're asking a lot of him this year. I don't think that's fair. To me, he's either a number 3 or a designated pass rusher. Honestly, I'm not terribly familiar with how great he is against the run. That would be a big differentiator here. But because he has a smaller sample size over the last couple of years, I'm going to put him in as a designated pass rusher. Andrew Van Ginkel, honestly, man, he's a tough one because he's one of the more versatile edge players in the league. This guy's played off-ball linebacker. He defends the run incredibly well. He's shown a lot of finesse as a pass rusher this year. He's been really efficient and a key piece for the Dolphins. I think if he was your number 2, you'd be perfectly fine with that. He's probably going to end up on the lower end of the number 2s because in terms of his ability to win one-on-one as a pass rusher, it's not quite there. But I'm a big fan of Andrew Van Ginkel's game. Okay, Azeez Ojulari, I'm going to have him a lot lower than people think. I mean, he's maybe a number 2 in terms of efficiency, but I don't think you can. I'm sorry, he's maybe a number 3 in terms of efficiency. He's a really tough one because he's always hurt. But I think I'm going to put him, honestly, in prospect with number 2 upside at this point. He just can't get on the field. I like his game. I don't know that he can ever be a number 1. He's just not the biggest guy, not the strongest guy, not the bendiest guy. He's a tactical rusher. He's got some power. I like him. But honestly, until he proves he can stay healthy, I don't think he's any more than an intriguing prospect for the Giants, even if he's been in the league for a little bit. All right, Brian Burns, he's a true number 1. Him versus Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, pick your poison, man. I think I'd lean Aiden Hutchinson, but both these guys are having incredible seasons. Pretty straightforward there. All right, Baron Browning. Man, he's probably in here, honestly. I mean, let's pull up his numbers. He hasn't played a ton this year, but he's been awesome. In fact, I had to reduce my qualifiers for him. I have it at 20% snaps on the year. He missed the start of the season, but he's already, like, from an efficiency standpoint, living up to some of the hype he built last year. The pass rush win rate is a little bit lower at 12% there, but his traits are so awesome. I mean, he's got 13 pressures, 3 sacks in 4 games. That's very good. Honestly, if he were a number 2, I'm cool with it at this point. And I think someday he really could be a number 1. He's got real legit traits. He's an exciting player, played a lot of linebacker at Ohio State, playing on the edge now. Not an unfamiliar story to Micah Parsons. I'm not saying he's going to be Micah Parsons, but that was the trajectory for him out of the Big Ten. So I'm a big fan of Baron Browning. I think he belongs right there. Then we got Bradley Chubb. He's an interesting one. I think he's right in there with like Alex Highsmith. I prefer Highsmith. I think he's a little bit more complete as a rusher. Chubb's having a good year, though. I want to give him credit. I think he could be a 1, but in an ideal situation, he's a number 2. Then we got Brandon Graham, really good designated pass rusher at this point. They reduce his snap count because he is so old. He can defend the run, too, if they want to ask him to, but that's kind of the definition of probably can't be a full-time starter for you because of the snap count thing at his age. He's like 36, but you got to be a fan of his efficiency still up there. Bryce Huff, another tough one because he's a part of that Jets rotation. I'm going to drop him there for now while I talk. He's a part of the Jets rotation and hasn't really gotten that opportunity to flourish as a full-time starter. But over the last 2 years, all he's done is show that he is incredibly efficient when he does play. As you can see right there, he's PFF's 14th graded pass rusher. He's 8th in pressures, and look at how many less snaps he's played. Pass rush win rate way up there, 27% for Bryce Huff, 9th in the league. Like, his efficiency is crazy. So, I mean, where does that put him? Is he a designated pass rusher who he definitely would have to be at the top of that list? Is he a number 2 now that could be a 1 someday? I don't know that he has the traits to sustain being a 1. Is he just in this group where, honestly, I think he's just a true number 2. I think his efficiency has proven him to be in this level, but he is a little, like, I love Bryce, but he's a little bit undersized. He was undrafted. Is he really going to be the best, like, one of the top 15 pass rushers full time someday? You know, maybe he's on that Trey Hendrickson trajectory. But I think this is the right spot for Bryce right now, who's had an awesome career. The one NFL player that follows me on Twitter right now. Then we got Nick Bosa. I mean, we're not really here to tell you who the elite pass rushers in the NFL are. I think those are pretty clear. Nick Bosa is one of them. Byron Young is a fascinating one. Very athletic rookie out of Tennessee, 25-year-old rookie. Again, very interesting. Like, can he really learn football and get up to speed at that age? He technically has the traits to be a number 1. I would bet against that, just because I think his age puts him behind the 8 ball to get way up at the top here. But I definitely think he can be a number 2 someday, and a very good find for the Rams in the 3rd round. He's had a good season. Then we get Cam Jordan. I think Cam's just a number 2. And I would put him probably right behind Bryce Huff here. He still defends the run extremely well. He's getting after the quarterback at a decent clip, like a low-end number 2 in terms of pass rushing ability. So I think that's the right spot for Cam. And Calais Campbell, it's nice that he comes right after him because these guys are very similar players. They play in the same system at this point, the same division. The Saints, Ryan Nielsen comes over from the Saints to the Falcons as the defensive coordinator, and he's like, I need another Cam Jordan. Great, let's sign Calais Campbell. I think I prefer Campbell at this point to Cam Jordan, but they're very tight. 2 big-bodied, good run, great run defenders, good pass rushers. Definitely can still be number 2s for you. And honestly, Carl Granderson is in that similar mold. I like that they fed us those 3 guys in a row. Granderson, again, good pass rusher, great run defender. I think he's honestly probably better than Cam Jordan on that Saints team at this point. Would I put him over Campbell? You know, that's a tight group to sort. It's minutia to sort those guys, but all very similar, solid number 2 players. Then we got Charles Harris. I think I would put him right in front of Arden Key. Both very similar, kind of, you know, number 3 designated pass rusher types. He's been pretty efficient for the Lions when they rotate him in there, but he definitely doesn't, you know, play the whole snap load for them. Then we got Charles Omenihu, who to me is a number 2. He got kind of a contract at around $10 million to be a number 2. He's not the most complete player, but he is a disruptive dude for the Chiefs. I probably would, leave him behind that group we just talked about. These are all bigger bodied dudes. And Omenihu can rush from the inside too, so putting him next to Andrew Van Ginkel shows some of that versatility and what he brings to the table. But yeah, good underrated player there. Dante Fowler, you know, very similar to what we said about Charles Harris. Arden Key, very friendly situation in Dallas where they stunt him up. He never is going to be the guy that offensive lines are focusing on, but he's been very efficient in Dallas. And then we get to Nico Autry. Honestly, him and Charles Omenihu are like the same player. Like big-bodied, very good at getting pressure from the interior, can play off the edge. Omenihu is a little bit more of a true edge. I think a little bit more athletic at this point, which might make him more 3 down, but it just would feel weird to put Autry as a designated pass rusher and Omenihu up here when really these guys are just very similar players. They play in different systems right now, but I think they probably should be lumped together there. Then we got Dennis Gardeck. He is the definition of a designated pass rusher. Really lacks the traits to really rely on him in a full-time edge role, but he's been really efficient. I'd probably put him, honestly, right behind Brandon Graham there. He's been a nice player for the Cardinals this year, and I think can have a nice career there still as a number 3. Then we've got Danielle Hunter. Very self-explanatory. He's a true number 1. I don't think he's an elite guy. He's not quite on that insane efficiency level as like your top dudes. If you pull this up, you know, he's going to be 20th in pass rush win rate in the NFL. So this feels about right. 44 pressures. He's up there in terms of sacks. So yeah, Hunter's a stud. Vikings should pay him. DJ Wonnum, perfect example of a guy being asked to be a 2 who's definitely a 3. He gets a lot of pressures. He walks into some sacks. He'll get some pass rush wins, which you love to see, but that's a lot of it is because of the opportunities that he has been given in Minnesota the last couple of years. I don't see overwhelming power from him. I don't see overwhelming finesse. I don't see overwhelming traits from him. I think he should probably be a really good number 3 for somebody. Then we got DeMarcus Lawrence. You know, he gets overshadowed by Micah Parsons, obviously, who we might as well just take Micah Parsons and drop him up here, who I think I would take over Nick Bosa at this point in time. He's just been taken over, but I mean, God, you're splitting hairs at the top there. But DeMarcus Lawrence has quietly been really good. Let's see where Lawrence sits on this list. So he is going to be 16th in pass rush win rate. But again, you know, 28 pressures towards the bottom, just the 4 sacks. I think you're probably talking about Lawrence as in this group where you could probably get by with him as your number 1, but ideally you've got him as a number 2 like Dallas has. I do think he's more efficient than Bradley Chubb, not more efficient than Alex Highsmith. So I think that's probably the right spot for Lawrence. David Ojabo. Perfect example of a prospect with number 1 upside. Just we really haven't seen much from him. He hasn't gotten fully healthy, hasn't been able to stay healthy either. Missed his rookie season. Definitely would have been a top 15 pick if he never tore his Achilles or whatever it was at his pro day. But I definitely believe David Ojabo could someday, with the Ravens, enter this category of rusher, kind of like a young Danielle Hunter in a lot of ways. Then we got Dayo Odeyingbo. I think I'm going to drop him in this group. He's very similar to these players right here, Danico Autry, Charles Omenihu. I don't know that he's quite as proven as those players. So, you know, maybe he's like down here. I think if you just look at him as someone that you play in certain spots and pick matchups as a designated pass rusher, he's having a really good year. But I just don't know if he's got the completeness these kind of hybrid players are difficult to kind of sort here because he's going to play a lot of snaps, but a lot of them are in the inside too. So he's a tough one. I think that's the right kind of category for him, though. He's an ascending young player that's proved me wrong. I didn't see it with him in the draft, and they took him in the second round. He's been a good player. Dorance Armstrong, to me, number 3 in a really good situation. I think that's perfect right there behind DJ Wonnum. Underrated player for the Cowboys, completely slept on in that deep group of D linemen that they have, but he plays a really good role, plays a lot of meaningful early downs for them, and he's been useful as a pass rusher. Then we got Drake Jackson. I think he's a prospect with number 2 upside, but at the top of this list. Showed some flashes early this season, and then the Niners were like, you know what, we're probably going to win the Super Bowl this year. Let's go get Chase Young and Randy Gregory, and I think Drake Jackson has been hurt as well. So I like Drake Jackson. I think someday he could be kind of a Samson Ebukam type for the Niners there. Then we got Darrell Taylor. Very clear designated pass rusher, cannot play full snaps for them because he can't defend the run, but he'll splash with some sacks and some good pass rush wins. Definitely belongs right in there. Then we've got Arnold Ebiketie here. This one's fascinating. So I had to pause and find him here. They actually have him in the linebacker group. He didn't show up in the edge group when I pulled him up. I think that's a little bit of a error on PFF's end. He's definitely playing off the edge, which he's an edge player. That's not a surprise. He has played 4 snaps as a linebacker, which maybe that populated him as a linebacker in the system, but they probably should get that fixed. But anyway, I didn't know necessarily what to do with him because he's only playing 20 snaps a game. He's a guy that's dealt with injuries. He's grading out well, but the numbers aren't quite there. So do we think he's a number 2 yet? He's definitely on the fringe. I mean, you're either putting him here or you're putting him like up here, because he's not a DPR. He's not a true number 3. Honestly, I think this is where Ebiketie's got to go. And it sounds low, but I don't think he's proven as much as any of these guys above him, and I don't think he's got the traits to be a number 1 where you would put him in there in the Baron Browning category. So it is unfortunately low based on our categories, but yeah, he hasn't flourished with the Falcons this year. But I still think we could easily see him up in this group, maybe even by season's end if his snap count goes up and stuff. So like I like Ebiketie, but he's gonna fall in pretty low based on what he's done so far. Also, by the way, was looking good last year, but he like broke his arm and his efficiency went in the tank. So he just hasn't quite gotten back to full speed since then, it seems. But then we got Felix Anudike-Uzomah, definitely in this group, was a good prospect, went in the first round. I never saw a number 1 in Anudike-Uzomah, and he hasn't shown to be a true number 2 quite yet. But he's probably right there with Ebiketie, where he's a pretty solid player, just hasn't gotten a chance to really prove that he's a full-on number 2 quite yet. Isaiah Foskey, I did not like this pick. He's offered very little to the Saints. I would hope I'm wrong, but man, I had a 3rd to a 4th round grade on Isaiah Foskey. They took him with like the 40th pick in the draft. I was very critical of the Saints as well when they took Peyton Turner, who belongs down here too. They took both these guys very high in the draft. I've disagreed with their evaluations with that edge group, and so far I haven't been proven wrong on that. I would love for them to, reach their upside. These guys have some tools to eventually become starters in the NFL, but they've gotten very little from those investments from those 2 guys right there. Then we got George Karlaftis. Now, he has really impressed, really kind of out the gate. I mean, he had a good rookie year, and he's been really solid in year 2 here. I don't think he's ever going to be a number 1. He's just not the most athletic guy. Wins in a variety of different ways. He's a complete player, but in terms of those dominator traits, he just doesn't really have them. But he has been really impressive. I think I would prefer Bryce Huff, but Karlaftis' ability to play all 3 downs, you could argue the edge there. But those 2 guys are young, like good number 2s that are just having a good year. Greg Rousseau as well. They're kind of feeding us these guys in clusters, which I like. Greg Rousseau to me is right here with like, he is like a young Calais. That's saying a lot. Calais Campbell's had an incredible Hall of Fame career, but maybe Cam Jordan, like, you know what I'm saying? That big edge that's not overly efficient as a pass rusher, but has some big time wins and is a really good run defender at this stage in his career, though. He's better, I think, than all these guys. So just a really good number 2. I like Greg Rousseau. Was a guy, I pounded the table for him as a good pick for the Bills. And even if he hasn't been the most efficient or like shown that he's going to be a number 1 pass rusher someday, I think he's at least a number 2. Then we got Derek Hall. I mean, he's got to be down in this group. He's actually been really kind of piss poor when he has played. I still like Derek Hall. I thought it was a good pick, but they have unfortunately gotten zilch, zero, nada from him as a rookie. So until proven otherwise, he's going to be in this group. I still like his combination of size and power, size in a way that he's not that he's big, but he's compact and he's a little bit shorter with really long arms. So there's a lot of potential to have a good bull rush there. But yeah, it clearly hasn't come together. And his deficiencies as a run defender at Auburn have showed up in Seattle as well and kept him off the field. So we got to see more from Hall. Then we got Justin Houston. I mean, he's still a pretty solid player. He's either like the lowest of number 2s. Probably ideally, though, you're lumping him in here with, this group where he's a designated veteran rotational pass rusher type. Let's see how efficient he's been this year. 30th in pass rush win rate. Barely played those 7 games. So definitely needs to be in that designated group where he just can't handle the snap count. But when he's getting those true pass rush opportunities, he's still winning at a decent level. Definitely getting up there in age, though. I think you probably put him behind Dio. And yeah, I think I'd still trust Justin Houston to win me a big third down over these other guys. But it's close. Then we got Harold Landry. He is declining, man. He's coming off the significant injury and just has not been able to get after the quarterback. He's still a useful player, kind of like an Andrew Van Ginkel. But I might get a little takey here and just put him in there as, at this point, I think he might be a number 3 who gets a lot of opportunities there in Tennessee. I mean, let's pull up the stats on him. Bro, 135th in pass rush win rate, 18 pressures on 228 snaps. He has been rough, man. So I think, unfortunately, he's a player I like, but unfortunately at this point in time, they're asking too much of him. He probably needs to enter that kind of third piece for an edge rush category. Then we got Josh Allen has blown me away this year, man. He just keeps getting better year in, year out. His yearly growth is super satisfying for the draft nicks out there. Let me just pull up his profile here. So he's 6th in the NFL in win percentage, but just look at his grades, how they've climbed every year. Literally, other than 2020 to 2021, where he got hurt, so his snap count threw things off a little bit. He has gotten, I don't even want to say incrementally better, like notably better every single year, to the point that this year he's encroaching on elite territory. And that was the dream when you took him, right? He was a little bit more raw coming out, but he has really climbed. Honestly, I think I'm going to put him at the top of the true number 1s at this point in time. And I mean, until we might have some other guys pass him up, but I think I would take him over Aiden Hutchinson right now. And that's not a slight to Aiden Hutchinson. That's just a testament to how good Josh Allen's been. And think if the Jags didn't screw up and took Aiden Hutchinson, how nasty that combination would be. Oh, that must hurt if you're a Jags fan. Then we got Joey Bosa. Gets hurt again. I'm going to still give him the respect. He showed enough before this most recent injury that he still has it in him to have that efficiency of a number 1. But honestly, with the injuries, you could make a strong case that I'd rather have Alex Highsmith over Joey Bosa because he's more reliable. But in terms of who the player he is, I'll give him the respect. But he is very much impeding on being in this group where you just can't really count on him as your best edge rusher. You know what? screw it. Let's do it. You just can't count on Joey Bosa, and it's a health thing. It's not an efficiency thing. But when a guy is always getting hurt, you just, at some point, you got to acknowledge the reality of the situation. Jadeveon Clowney has really impressed me this year. He's a true number 2, right up there with these guys we've talked about, where he's a good pass rusher and a great run defender. I think you got to put him over Greg Rousseau. I think that's the perfect spot right there with this group. He's really impressed me. I didn't love that signing because I thought it would slow down David Ojabo's development, but clearly Ojabo just wasn't ready to be healthy and be that impact, and they signed Clowney. And not only was that a good move because Ojabo hasn't been the guy I hoped he would be this year, but I mean, his efficiency, he's having one of the best years he's had as a pass rusher. So Clowney has really impressed me this year. He's a guy I've been hard on throughout his career, but what a signing that's been for the Ravens and Eric DeCosta. John Franklin Myers, to me, very similar to these hybrid, big-bodied edge rushers. Super underrated player for the Jets. I think he's a better pass rusher than Greg Rousseau, and I'd probably rather have him than Jadeveon Clowney. He's a little bit more scheme-dependent. He wants to be on one of that 4-man front where he can slide him in to be kind of that 4-eye, 3-tech on pass rush downs, but he's a really good player. I think I'd even put him over Karlaftis, honestly, in terms of his efficiency at winning one-on-ones. Then we got Jonathan Grenard for the Houston Texans. He's a fascinating one because he's had kind of an up-and-down career. Didn't do anything in his rookie year, burst onto the scene in a small sample size in year 2. Let's just pull up his profile. He is 62nd in pass rush win rate, so he's literally right on the fringe of being a number 2. But he's, I think, trending in the right direction. That game against Cincinnati, he was awesome. But yeah, you can see very quiet rookie year. Then 2021 had this amazing run. 8 sacks, 27 pressures on just 200 pass rush snaps. Very quiet last year, dealt with some injuries, and now he's settled in as a pretty nice number 2. I think that's where he belongs right now, as just, he's probably just a number 2. You could argue the sample size is still a little bit small, but I do like his game. I think I'd put him down here, probably right there with, like, right above Andrew Van Ginkel. And I'm almost debating putting Van Ginkel in this group just because he's not like a true edge, but I think Van Ginkel's just a good, solid 3-down player, so we'll put him there. But yeah, Grenard right there. Then we got James Houston. He's interesting because I don't know that he's ever going to be even a number 2 starter, but I do know that he's already a pretty good designated pass rusher. I mean, he had a really small sample size as a 6th-round rookie last year out of a small school. He's undersized. That's why I say I don't know that he's ever going to be a true 3-down player, but he's got speed, bend. He's got a nasty spin move. I think I've seen enough to say that at least as a designated rusher, he's very similar to like Dennis Gardick, who's very undersized, small school dude. These guys are very similar, actually, when you look at it. So, we'll put him right there. Then you got Jermaine Johnson having a really good year, man. All these Jets rushers feed off each other. Let's see how he stacks up. He's going to be 43rd in pass rush win rate, 33 pressures, 6 sacks. Those are good number 2 numbers right now. I also just don't know if Jermaine Johnson's ever going to be a 1. Not the bendiest guy. He's a little stiff. He's very much a straight line winner. A lot of power, very close to George Karlaftis. I think I'd take Karlaftis over him, but he's been pretty sweet. Then we got Jalen Phillips. Just going to drop him there for now. He is actually probably at the top of this group. This is tough because, like, he's a better player than... No, he's probably in this group, honestly. He's interesting. He's a small sample size guy. You loved what we've seen. 1st-round pick. Was really slow. Like, so... Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words right now, but last year he showed that he can put up number 1 numbers for the first time. Huge expectations coming into this year. Really slow start. concerningly slow start, but was a little bit injured. But you also have that scheme change in Miami, so a lot to consider here. I think he's a 2 for sure. So I don't want to. Oh, this is so tough. Like, this is probably the right definition, but he is not in the same tier as Baron Browning. It's almost like we need to move Browning. It's just tough because there's, a lot of context to consider here. No, I like where Browning is. I'm going to put Phillips in this group, but at the top of this group. You know what? You know what we're going to do? We need it. We need a new tier. We need a new tier, guys. I don't know what color to go with. We'll go with... Sure. We're going to go with high-end number 2 with number 1 upside. And that's where you can put these guys in there. Because these guys are already really good players. And by the way, I realize I screwed that up by overwriting the could be number 1, ideally number 2 tier. I'm coming to you from the future to say I get it fixed here in about 8 players. So just note that here. I think Will Anderson has brought a really good floor to the table. Hasn't necessarily been elite or anything like that, but he's definitely lived up to his expectations as a rookie and belongs in this group. So this was definitely a needed addition here. I feel good about that. All right, we got Josh Uche next. He's interesting because he plays like a designated pass rusher. He's been incredibly efficient for the Patriots. I think this feels right. He could probably be a number 2. He hasn't had the most incredible season for the Patriots after what he did last year was insane. Let's look at Uche, how he's doing this year. So he's still been efficient. He's missed some time, but again, only 116 pass rush snaps this year. On a per game basis, he's just not playing full-time reps. And that goes back to last year. And you can see he hasn't been quite as efficient. So I love Uche. Kind of until proven otherwise, though. I think this is probably where we got to put him. Then we got Kayvon Thibodeaux. Glad we added this group because this is where he belongs. High-end number 2 with number 1 upside. I think he's probably a step ahead Will Anderson at this point in time. He's a year ahead in his development. He's had a good year, man. He's got double-digit sacks. He's been winning some reps. He's not a perfect player, but definitely feeling like a good pick for the Giants. Okay, Kwity Paye. Man, I have been really underwhelmed with Kwity Paye this year, and I would bet the numbers back that up. Holy buckets, 137th in pass rush win rate. His teammate Dio right above him there, but grading out much better. Wow, he has been incredibly inefficient. I didn't see a super high upside in Kwity Paye. I mean, I don't think he's a number 2. Honestly, this just might be where Kwity Paye is. Right there with like an AJ Epinesa. Probably not even as good. Like, I mean, he technically still has number 2 upside. But is he a prospect at this point? He's been in the league for 3 years. Man, that hurts. But I think that's probably where Kwity Paye is. Big contract year for him coming up. But I don't think he's shown enough upside to be viewed as a number 2 guy. So yeah, Kwity Paye, ouch. Okay, Michael Hoyt, he's the definition of a number 3, decent player. He's a weird, like oversized edge. They do some fun stuff with him. They drop him into coverage a bunch. It's been a piece for them, but yeah, probably being asked to do a little bit too much. All right, Lucas Van Ness goes right in this group with Ojabo. I think with the health with Ojabo at this point, you're probably feeling better about Lucas Van Ness. He's kind of very similar to Rashawn Gary when the Packers drafted him, where first year he really didn't do anything because he's behind Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith. Now Lucas Van Ness is behind Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith. So he's shown some flashes, but it really has just been such a small sample size. He's kind of a wait and see type of prospect, but he's got real tools, man. Real tools. He went with the 14th pick for a reason, or 13th pick. Khalil Mack is a true number 2. I know he had the big 6-sack game against the Raiders, but from an efficiency standpoint, he's probably worse than all these guys, but still a really good player. that can have some big games, obviously. So I still like Khalil Mack, but he's definitely not what he once was. All right, there's Max Crosby. I think Max is definitely a tier 1 player at this point. He's got speed, he's got power, he's relentless, he's got a bunch of pass rush moves. He's probably the best run defender out of all of the top tier guys. He's the only reason that Raiders defense is half competent. So Max Crosby has just been unbelievable. And again, they keep feeding us these guys in bunches because Myles Garrett is elite. He's gotten plenty of coverage this year. I talk about him pretty much every week on the Fully Inflated Football podcast about he's going to be Defensive Player of the Year. He is having that sort of like peak J.J. Watt, peak Aaron Donald type of season. Just been such a special watch. Then we got Sam Williams. I think you put Sam Williams in here with Baron Browning, where it's a small sample size, but it's been efficient enough that he could probably be a number 2 that's at least developing. And he's got speed, he's got bend, he's good at getting the ball out, stripping the quarterback. So I think Sam Williams has really. I was not a Sam Williams guy. His off-field stuff concerned me. How he was used at Ole Miss, where he played a lot of interior, worried me. But he's really impressed me. It's obviously a convenient situation to be in Dallas, I guess, where everyone's kind of benefiting from the situation, but. He was a second-round pick, has definitely shown a lot of promise. Although, do I see him being a number 1? That's a good question. Probably not. Baron Browning is kind of a unique case with this tier right here, kind of screwing everything up. So is he a number 2 already? I mean, if Jonathan Grenard can be a number 2, Sam Williams can be a number 2. Right, I think that's a fair explanation there because Grenard also has a smaller sample size. Yeah, I think we settled on a good spot there for Sam Williams. Then we got Matthew Judon, and this is where I get this fixed here because this is where Matthew Judon belongs, in my opinion. I think he's probably better than Khalil Mack. Chubb's having a good year, but I think I'd rather have Judon because Judon does so many versatile things for them. And I know Chubb does too, but Judon's even at another level. But yeah, Judon, he's a number 1 for the Patriots. They get by with it. Ideally, though, Judon's a 2, right? I think he's kind of the definition of that cluster right there. Then we got Myles Murphy, prospect with number 1 upside. Again, for the health reasons, I think you're probably putting him over David Ojabo at this point. And Murphy has shown some real flashes when he's played. He was an interesting prospect. He grew on me throughout the draft process. I thought he went to a great landing spot with the Bengals. I'm excited to see what he can become because similar to like Lucas Van Ness, he's behind a guy in Sam Hubbard who, we can just drop Sam Hubbard there right now. Like he's a low end 2, not super efficient, but does enough in terms of run defense and leadership that he's playing right now. But Myles Murphy has so much more potential. And him and Trey Hendrickson could be nasty someday. We might as well complete the Bengals while we're on that topic. Trey Hendrickson's having an amazing season. Truly, let's pull up those stats if you don't believe me. Does come in a little bit lower in terms of win percentage, so I do want to note that. But if you look at the pass rush grade, he's 4th in the league. He's got 6th in pressures. He's got double-digit sacks. He has been a truly... This season, he's played at an elite level. Would I expect him to sustain that year in, year out? Probably still no. But I think Trey Hendrickson has been the best of the true number 1s this year. And hopefully he can get healthy for the Bengals, although their season's kind of done anyway. But yeah, he's been sick this year. He's probably going to finish at the top of that true number 1 tier. Then we got Montez Sweat. Probably belongs in this tier where he could be a 1. He's probably going to be a 1 for the Bears for a while. But kind of like we saw in Washington, never reached the dominance of a high-end 1 and that kind of deal. So I can't quite put him over Joey Bosa. Probably not putting him over DeMarcus Lawrence or Judon. This is funny because both these guys were traded for high draft picks recently to get big contracts. I think this is where I drop Montez Sweat. I like Montez Sweat. I like that trade for the Bears, even though a lot of people didn't. So he's he's in a good spot right there. Then Nick Bonito. Him and Baron Browning might just belong in their own little group here, because Nick Bonito, although Bonito doesn't really have the length and strength of a Baron Browning, but he is a really special athlete. I like Bonito a lot, but he probably belongs more down in this group. But I think he's shown more than any of these guys. So he is interesting. Like, he's super speedy, super bendy, and a lot of people love those traits. But at the end of the day, I still think if you're going to be a number one, you need to be able to drive your guy back and have that threat of power. I don't know that Benito's ever going to have that necessarily, but I do think he can be a really good 2 someday for somebody. Nolan Smith, honestly, probably in that group too. He's tough. Similarly, I just don't know that Nolan Smith's ever going to be a true 1. There were a lot of Hassan Reddick comps. It's possible that he could be a 1. I'll put him in there out of respect to Nolan Smith. It feels harsh to put him in this group because I did love Nolan as a prospect, and because he's next to Reddick, I think he could get there. It's hard because he hasn't really played, right? But we knew that was going to happen. So referring back to my draft takes, I did think he could someday be something like a Hassan Reddick, which let's just do Reddick right now while we're on that topic. I think Reddick is a true number 1. His efficiency's dropped off a little bit this year. Eagles fans might not like this, but honestly, just watching the film, watching these guys back this year, I would take all these guys before Reddick. I think Reddick's in a really friendly situation where he's not drawing a lot of attention. They've got all those other great pass rushers. If you look at him on the season, I don't even know if he stacks. He's heating up since he's gotten healthy, but in terms of win percentage, he's 36th in the NFL. He has gotten up to 44 pressures, 9 sacks, but the grading profile there, he's 26th. So I don't feel that bad about putting him behind Brian Burns and Danielle Hunter when these guys have been really dominant this season. It's more of a credit to these guys than it is dissing on Hassan Reddick. Then we got Uchenna Nwosu. He really belongs right next to Andrew Van Ginkel. Just a very complete player. Could be your number 2. Probably if you had a good interior presence as well, just because these guys aren't dominant rushers in their own right. But in terms of run defense, coverage, the ability to run stunts with these guys, very versatile, complete number 2 players. Then we got Odafe Oweh. Again, this is why I'm glad we have this category right here, where Oweh does have those traits to become like a Josh Allen, where he's getting better every year and eventually becomes a number 1. Really have been impressed with Oweh this season. Was a little more quiet last year, but he's really picking up some better pass rush moves. He's got all the traits. He's been good this year. Agbanya Okoronkwo. You could debate designated pass rusher because that's what he's been, and I think it's probably best to leave him there because we have Uche there as well. So I will debate and settle him in there. But he's right there with like Josh Uche, where, man, if you put him in a spot where he was being a full-time starter, I think he has a really good chance to clear that. But Agbanya, like Josh Uche, lacking some of the length and size that you typically look for. And that's probably the difference between these guys and like a Sam Williams, who is a full-size edge player. Agbanya is like 6'2", 250, a little bit on the smaller side, and especially Uche. Then we got Preston Smith. He's right there with like Sam Hubbard, Uchenna Nwosu. Probably a little better than them, a little bit better as a rusher. Very complete run defender. He's the kind of prototype number 2, like mid-range, low-end number 2, sort of. I think I'd put him ahead of this group, but behind the bigger-bodied types. Then we got Gary. Gary has been such a monster. I think I'm going to drop him right there. And I think this most recent game might have split this between Aiden Hutchinson and Rashawn Gary. These guys are neck and neck. I mean, these 3 in the NFC North ranked right next to each other. But you could just, those that watched the Thanksgiving game, if you weren't familiar with Rashawn Gary's game, that's who that dude is. He is relentless. When he hits, he has so much force and stopping power that he gets a lot of balls out. He finally got some sacks on the stat sheet now because he's been one of the more efficient pressure getters, but hasn't always finished them. But that 3-sack performance against the Lions is definitely going to help. If you sort by win percentage, Rashawn Gary 11th in the league. He's been nasty this season. And honestly, I don't know if that those numbers right there include his performance. I don't know if those grades are in yet. Those grades are not in yet, by the way. So these numbers, that's before that dominant Thursday game against the Lions. So that's only going to go up. Also, shout out Yetur Gross-Matos. Not on my list, but small sample size. Dude's winning some reps this year. Maybe he's coming along. He gets a little shout out in the middle of the video here. But then we got Randy Gregory, designated pass rusher all the way through. I'd put him probably ahead of Gardick and James Houston. Pretty self-explanatory. Boye Mafe, sure. Let's put him with Baron Browning. Boye Mafe's had a really good year. I think he's established himself as a good number 2 rusher. He's got the traits, was a high early second-round pick because of the traits, and now the traits are starting to match with the tools. Local guy, grew up in my hometown here, so we are going to give him a little bit of love. But, yeah, he's having a great year. Then we got Samson Ebukam, definition of a number 2. Very good player. Very similar to a Preston Smith. I think I like his energy and tenacity a little bit more than a Preston Smith. Both good players, though. Similar players, good run defenders, good pass rushers, not great in either way. All right, Shaq Barrett. Shaq Barrett probably needs to go right in this group with like Judon, Lawrence, some of these veteran guys that are really still good players. Could be a 1, but at their age, probably trending towards a 2. Khalil Mack, these guys are all kind of in that tier for that reason. Josh Sweat. I think Josh Sweat might be the best example of a number 2 that's not a 1. He's not asked to be a 1. He's asked to be a 2. He's damn good at it. He's been very steady, but does he have that dominating presence to be a 1? I would say no. Then we got Joe Tryon, who honestly might be another addition to the Baron Browning tier. Joe Tryon still has the traits, still getting better. He has done enough, I think, to be categorized as a 2. Only 15 pressures on the season, 3 sacks. He's stood out to me, though. Those numbers are surprising, and his true one-on-one grades show you. He's 13 of his 15 pressures have come on true pass rush snaps. That's very interesting. So he's good in those real pass rush situations, which are third down dropbacks, not like play action or where you're getting chipped or anything like that. So I'm going to put him at the bottom of this tier. I don't feel amazing about it, but he is a tradesy player, was a first-round pick. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but needs to happen a little quick. Otherwise, he's probably going to find himself down, in this group if we did this again. But then we got Tuli. Really like what we're seeing from Tuli this year. Honestly, he definitely should be right in here with like Boye Mafe. I'll put him behind Boye. Mafe's putting up a little bit better numbers. But I think Tuli has burst onto the scene. Great in run defense. Good pass rusher. He could be a 2 right away. It was a great pick for the Chargers. Although, again, is he going to be a number 1? I keep asking myself this. That was a thing with Tuli, is he's not the most athletic guy. Honestly, Tuli might just be a good number 2 pass rusher already. I don't want to say a guy's reached his ceiling already, but I think in terms of where he's going to settle in, I think this feels right. I think I'd put him right here, which, if we've got Sam Williams, Jonathan Grenard, less proven players in this group, I think Tuli belongs in there as well. I feel very good about them as a 2, but probably never going to be a 1. So why not just put him as a true number 2? Travon Walker. He's in this group, man. He is. He is continued in year 2 to be really inefficient. Travon Walker, pass rush win rate, 83rd in the NFL. PFF grade, he's going to come in for pass rushing 80. Oh, wait, that's DeMarcus Walker. 120th in PFF grade. Let's double check to make sure we got the win percentage right there, and that wasn't DeMarcus Walker. They're right next to each other. So 83rd. We did get that right. I mean, dude, that's not even a number 2 yet. Now, he was drafted off the traits, just like Lucas Van Ness, Myles Murphy, but it has not showed returns, especially as a pass rusher. He's still been a pretty good run defender, but honestly, I don't even love that Travon Walker is a number 2 right now. He just is not efficient at all. What a horrible pick, man. You've got frickin' Aiden Hutchinson sitting up here and Travon Walker sitting down here, who you took over him. Just brutal. Even Kayvon Thibodeau would have been a better pick. So that's just brutal. Okay, then we got TJ Watt and designated pass rusher, just to rotate. No, obviously TJ Watt, poking at Steelers fans here. I think elite. I'm definitely taking Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons over TJ Watt. I know TJ Watt has very impactful plays, extremely good at stripping the ball, can make plays in coverage. He's in the elite tier for a reason. But in terms of these two guys' ability to truly take over a football game, I don't necessarily feel that with TJ Watt. And in terms of pass rush win rate, I mean, this is where people, the fans get so mad at PFF. Look, these are graded on a textbook, like, neutral evaluation standpoint. Pass rush win rate in terms of just winning one-on-one reps, TJ Watt's 69th in the NFL. Now, he does so many other things well that it makes him an elite player. But I just, man, I can't put him over Micah Parsons. I can't put him over Myles Garrett when you see their pass rush win rate up there in the 30s for those players. They've been doing it for multiple years. That's the main difference, is the dominator factor is just a little bit different with these guys, but they're all elite players. Then we have Tyree Wilson. I mean, he's right in this group, right? He is unproven, playing a little bit better lately, but just needs to show that he can win those one-on-one opportunities. I like the traits. Rough start for him, but you would have said that about Rashawn Gary. You would have said that about Danielle Hunter. You would have said we are saying about Travon Walker, Lucas Van Ness. It's not the end of the world. I'm still optimistic that he can come along, but it definitely has not shown the early returns that you might have hoped for. Victor Dimukesh, nice player. Had to include him. Honestly, I think he's shown. Wanham's a little more established, but he's shown a lot. I think he can be a good player for the Cardinals moving forward as a third piece. Then we got Von Miller. Man, we got to look at Von here because he was honestly, I think one of my better takes coming into the year was I was like a little lower on the Bills because I was saying, man, Von Miller is now 35 years old soon. In a couple months, he turns 35, coming off his second career ACL injury. I wasn't sure that he was going to come back, and when he came back, I was like, what is he going to be? He has not been good, dudes. Just 7 pressures on 98 snaps now, so it hasn't really picked up since he's been back. I mean, he's just getting he has no sacks yet, a pressure here, a pressure there. I mean, where is Von Miller? Is he a designated pass rusher at this point in his career? And if he is he better than Uche? No. He's not better than Okoronkwo. He's not better than Brandon Graham. Is this really where we need to put Von Miller? Maybe I'm confirming my priors because I was lower on him coming into the year, but at the same time, I had that opinion for a reason, and it's playing out. Until he shows me that he can win at 35 years old, coming off that ACL, I really think this is where he belongs. It hurts because he's on a big contract for the Bills, but I don't know how you can argue with those numbers and the fact that he just has been nowhere to be found. I really hope he proves me wrong. I've always loved Von Miller, but I think this is probably fair. He's literally been the least effective pass rusher on this entire list out of maybe like James Houston, who hasn't played, or at least the least productive. Will McDonald for the New York Jets, to me, goes right here. Didn't think he should have been drafted quite as high as he was. I think he has number 2 upside. My comp for him was Harold Landry. I wish the Jets went in a different direction. I wish they went with offense with that pick. They didn't. They filled out the edge group. He'll get an opportunity at some point. They'll probably let Bryce Huff go, and then he'll play, and then we'll see what he can do. And then maybe by next year, Will McDonald's way up here. It's very possible, but I really just don't think he has the size and overall traits to be a 1. So I would put him right there behind Benito, but I have a little bit more confidence in him than some of these other guys. Then we got Yannick. Honestly, man, Yannick has probably entered the DPR stages of his career. I got a lot of pushback from Bears fans when they signed Yannick Ngakoue, and I was like, okay, whatever. He doesn't move the needle. You know what he hasn't done this year? Move the frickin' needle. He's playing a lot, but I didn't even realize how bad he's been. 4.1 pass rush win rate. Pass rush grade 46. Now, he probably has... Is he leading the NFL in pass rush snaps? He's 5th. You could make a case, and there's DJ Wonnum, by the way, an example of you sort these by pass rush snaps, you can see how most of these guys are grading out at least well. Wonnum, a little overrated based on his snap count, but Yannick Ngakoue, you could make an argument he is the worst player in the NFL this year. I've always made this argument. You can say some dude that sucks and doesn't play a lot is the worst in the NFL, but the worst player in the NFL is the guy that's actually playing and holding his team back. Whoa. That's brutal. Look at his win percentage compared to all of these snap guys. You got to go down to Bud Dupree in Atlanta, who's 35th in snaps. Wow. I mean, I don't even think he's like a good designated pass rusher at this point. He was down last year. He's he might not even belong as a true number 3, but I'll put him ahead of Michael Hoyt. Wow. He's a true number 3 that's been asked to be a 1 this year. That's how bad the Bears pass rush before they got Montez Sweat. All right, Yaya Diaby, fascinating prospect. He's got all the traits technically to be a 1, but he's just so far behind the 8 ball there that I wouldn't go that far. Kind of similar to Byron Young. But I like Yaya. He's having a nice season. And honestly, I think we need to put Drake Jackson below these guys just because these guys have actually showed a little more than Drake. Although, no, Drake, when he played, showed some stuff, and then he got hurt. So I take that back. But, yeah, I like Yaya. Okay, Chase Young. He also belongs in this group. I'm really glad we created this tier because Chase Young is a high end too, who's playing great this year. I think I'll put him at the bottom just because of the injury stuff. He's interesting. He's going to be a very interesting guy to follow. I mean, by the end of or by the start of next season, depending how free agency goes for him, he could be there, right? So like he's definitely trending back in the right direction, but well, and he's probably been a better pass rusher than Will Anderson and probably better straight up than Thibodeau. I don't think I'd put him over Oweh. So, yeah, I think that's a good spot for Young right there. Then we got Zaven Collins, another fascinating player. Honestly, probably still a prospect because this is his first year playing off the edge. And I don't think he's ever going to be a number 1. But is he good enough to say he's a number 2? I don't think I'm quite there yet with him. So honestly, he's probably at the top of this group. I'm fascinated by him. He's been okay. And he's doing some of the Andrew Van Ginkel and Nwosu stuff. You know, these guys have linebacker experience, and it helps them in coverage and all that. But I don't think he's quite experienced enough there. I feel better about him there than down here, but I don't know. These guys are all kind of tight. I think I'll put Zaven there. All right. And then we got last guy, Za'Darius Smith, who is a awesome example of a could be a 1, should be a 2. And I think I'd put him between Judon and Sweat. So there's your list. We're going to be right around an hour for this. I really enjoyed doing it that way, kind of explaining the process. I am curious if you guys did as well. Honestly, if I just did this, if I pre-made it and then explained it, I don't know that it would take any less time. So I feel like this was a good way to kind of go through all the thinking on it. Yeah, hit that like button. Definitely drop your comments. Do you like this format? Do you have suggestions on how you'd like to see me do this differently in the future? I'm open to all of it. I just hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're having a great Thanksgiving weekend, and I hope you subscribe for more NFL content. Thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Peace out.